kid, I had a really cool bike. I mean, I hate to brag, but it was sweet. It didn't have any stickers on it, had no markings, had no logos. It was just cool on its own. It had these pegs on the back wheels for my friends to stand on as we rode around the neighborhood. It was just this cool, like burgundy red color, and it had great handlebar grips that you hold on to on the front. Now, I rode to my friend's house down the street from my house, and I left my bike in the front yard because it wasn't cool enough for a kickstand. I just laid it down in the grass. And then we went and we're playing in his backyard, and I noticed, and I looked out in his front yard, this kid was removing my handlebar grips from my bike. And I just took off sprinting, and I was yelling, "Don't take my grips." I think I was like maybe 10 or 12, right? I chased him down the street past my house, and my mom stepped out on the porch of our house to see what was going on, and then he threatened to call the kid's mother. That'll get you to stop in your tracks. So he sheepishly stopped, turned around, and then threw the handlebar grips into our front yard and then ran off. And I grabbed them and I put them back on their prized position on my bike. And then I made sure that I put it a lot closer to the gate next time so it didn't get those grips stolen off of it. Now, Jesus comes into town on a colt. Where did he get this colt? Let's talk about that. Was it Grand Theft Donkey? I don't know. Now, this colt was a mode of transportation for upper middle class people, much like having a car in an urban context, where many people are going to take the bus, subway, taxi, Uber, something like that. So here in this passage, Jesus orders his disciples to go get a colt out of somebody's front yard and bring it to him. Like, reading this, it sounds like the disciples need to sneak into the city and steal a car out of someone's driveway for Jesus or something like that. Now, maybe one of his disciples can make a diversion while the other slips off the lead of the donkey, and then they just kind of like quietly walk out of the city, hoping nobody's gonna notice. But the owner sees him and says, "Hey, what are you doing with my colt?" Now, I picture the disciples saying the phrase that Jesus told them to say if somebody asked him what he was doing, the Lord needs it, and then bolting away as fast as they can so they don't get caught, right? And because of some divine Jedi mind trick that Jesus pulls out of his pocket, he says, "These are not the colts you are looking for." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool. The Lord, yeah, whatever, that's fine with me." But that is not the emotion of this event. That's how I kind of see it playing out, but that is not at all the emotion of this event. There was a messianic expectation in the minds of all the people that the future king is going to enter the city upon a colt. And it comes from their traditions and stories from like Samuel, as David and Solomon, they entered the city on colts to be declared king. And there's a prophecy out of Zechariah 9 that says this is how the Messiah is going to come and reclaim that throne of David. So this is coming from the same people that saved an empty seat at the Passover table for Elijah's return. Still today, they still do that. Enacting scripts with symbolism is in the DNA of the people and the culture of these folks. So what if instead of the disciples committing Grand Theft Donkey and a guy running after them crying, "Hey, bring back my colt," we find instead a people prepared for the Messiah at any time? What if every year there's a colt tied to this post right outside the city in hopes that this is the year the Messiah comes to claim it? So the response, "The Lord needs it," is not an excuse to run off with a stolen donkey, but instead it would fill the entire region with excitement, hope, and a buzz that spreads fast. And Jesus seizes the expectation of the people by this act, claiming the throne as rightful king. But then those expectations turn, and they turn real fast. The Old Testament prophecy uses the term, "Your king comes to you humble, mounted on a donkey." We perceive humility as weakness. We all have this sense of how the world ought to be, and we latch on to the leaders who can powerfully, loudly, violently subdue the enemies of our vision of how it ought to be. But that always poisons the water we all swim in. And it never fixes the problem of evil, because you can't use hate to heal hate. You can't use violence to heal violence. You might be able to subdue it for a while, but that's not good enough for God, who wants to heal the entire world of evil. So let's see what happens next.